It seems like virtualization is everywhere. Microsoft realizes this, and they wanted to give you an incredible tool that makes it simple and easy to virtualize your storage. It's called Storage Spaces, and in this hands-on lab nugget, you and I will walk through it. So as you can see, I am launching the hands-on lab from the main course page. If you want to do the same, you can follow along with me step by step. So as I indicated, the idea behind Storage Spaces is for you to very easily virtualize your storage. This is found in Control Panel. So let's right-click the Start button and let's go to Control Panel. Inside Control Panel, you know what I love to do. I love to go to the large icon view. Otherwise, I can't find what I'm looking for half the time. And if we look at this view, you'll see Storage Spaces inside of Control Panel. So let's select Storage Spaces and let's create a new pool. So the first thing we do is create what's called a storage pool. This is one or more disks that you then want to make a logical storage space available from. Lots of options in here to walk through. Let's do it. So let's create a new pool and storage space. We'll say yes to the user account control, obviously. And then notice I've got a couple of unformatted drives in here for us. To show you the flexibility of this, let's uncheck disk 2 and let's begin this process with just a single disk. So we'll create a pool using this single disk. And it brings us into this wizard. We can name our storage space. We can then assign a drive letter. And then from a file system perspective, notice there's two options here. There's the NTFS that we're so familiar with for so many years, and then there's the resilient file system, a new file system that was really created with storage spaces in mind, so that if you're creating redundant disks, if you're doing the equivalent of like RAID 5 inside the storage space, the resilient file system has auto-healing properties and some optimization properties for this storage virtualization. There might be occasional times that we wouldn't want to use the redundant file system, or excuse me, the resilient file system, as it's named, because of the fact that it doesn't support some of the things that we can do in NTFS. An example in the server environment, for example, would be data deduplication, which isn't possible on the REFS file system. So that's the deal there with file system and that new option. Notice for resiliency, you can go no resilient, you can go 2- or 3-way mirror, or you could go the equivalent of RAID 5 with parity. If you select these options, you'll see the requirements. For instance, a RAID 5 parity type situation would require at least 3 drives. A 2-way mirror, no surprise, 2 drives. A 3-way mirror, you're going to need at least 5 drives to do this very resilient approach. For our purposes, we have to go simple with no resiliency because we're beginning this process with just the one disk. Notice we can then size our disk. So we want to make available to users here 4 gig. We'll choose Create Storage Space, and it does it. Look at this. So we've created this storage pool, and from the storage pool, we've created this 4 gig E drive that is a storage space. If we go to our File Explorer and we go to this PC, we'll see there's the storage space. Let's create inside that storage space a file. Just choose Rich Text Document, hit Enter on the keyboard, and now we have some data inside that storage space. So now what we'll do, and this is the beauty of virtualization, is we'll change things. Look at this. Under our storage pool, notice how easy it's going to be to add a drive. So I'll choose Add Drive. It sees disk 2 as being available, and it's even going to optimize the drive usage by taking existing data and distributing it beautifully across this additional disk that we're adding. That's so awesome. Notice there is a warning that this could slow down our PC while it's taking place. We'll choose Add Drive, and it does the work. Look at this. Optimization is currently waiting. Now it's optimizing. Now it's done. And now we have a pool of 8.5 gig capacity due to the added drive. Awesome. We'll go down here to our storage space and we'll change it. We'll say, look, we want to make available now the 8 gig. In fact, watch this. What we could actually do is thin provisioning. We can go in and say, represent it as 100 gig. Now, obviously, we would have to add disk drives as our users are approaching our actual available pool capacity, but this is a great way to go, isn't it? We'll change the storage space, and now if we look at the E drive, let's bring the File Explorer back up here. We go to this PC and we right-click our E drive and go Properties. It's showing up as a 100 gig virtual storage space. We'll add disks if we need to, but we're thin provisioning 100 gig out there, and the users see it as their 100 gigs of storage. So cool. Now, by the way, we did some pretty heavy manipulation there of the storage space. Let's double click it and let's make sure our new rich text document is still in place. It is. The data was unaffected. Now you ready for this? Let's say we need to perform maintenance on one of the disks, or we notice that the disk is just starting to fail. So what we do now is we go in and we expand the physical drives that make up this storage pool and the storage space, and we say, let's take this drive number 2 and let's prepare it for removal. In fact, I guess this is more dramatic. Let's go to the first one that we had created this whole thing from and prepare it for removal. It says, all right, we're going to prepare this disk so that it can be removed. We say, go for it. Now what happens is when we come in here, we see that we can safely remove this physical drive, and we will do that. We'll remove the drive. Let's see what's happening on our file system. So we'll go back into the File Explorer, this PC. Look at this. There's the E drive, still representing to our users that 100 gig of space. If we go in there, there's our rich text document just fine. So very, very powerful, easy to use virtualization of storage thanks to storage spaces. If you want to clean all this up, of course you can. We would delete the storage space, and now we are losing data. That's what that warning is all about. Any data that's stored in that storage space is going to be gone, so we better back up. And then we could even follow that up with deleting the pool. Now, if we go, for instance, and go up into disk management, we would see that inside of disk management, those 2 disks that we have are totally sitting there unallocated, ready to be used because all of our manipulation of them through storage spaces has been undone. Now, if you're preparing for certification and you're like me, you'll want to make electronic flashcards. That's what I love to do against this content. And I'll make them as I step through a hands-on lab like this. For instance, if we create a new pool, we would want to know, let's go ahead and choose Create Pool again here. We'd want to know our options in here. What are the 2 file systems that are options for us? What are the resiliency types? How many disks are required for each of the resiliency types? How do we thin provision? And of course, we thin provision just by literally lying about how much space is going to be available through this storage space. So you may want to make electronic flashcards based on these details, because these are the details, of course, that could rear their head in certification. And you know what's fun? Let's just finish this up by actually doing a resilient configuration while we're in here. We've got 2 disks, so I'll go to the resilient file system as an example. I'll go in and say I want to do a 2-way mirror. We'll again lie and say it's going to be 500 gigs in space, and we'll see if the storage space can be created. Look at that. Love it. And look at this. It says, hey, wait a minute here. You're lying big time about how much space is available. And because you're using resiliency of the 8 gig or so that we had, we're already utilizing 6.5 gig. So we can see what'll happen when we're low on capacity. It's telling us you better add some drives if they're that small, because to do redundancy occupies space on the disk. So we can do high resiliency, but we need a lot of drives. We need a lot of free space when we do that. It's a balancing act. But you know what's going on here? This disk is absolutely working. Sure, it may be low on space, but it's functioning and it is resilient. So I'll go back into the file system, for example. I'll go to my E drive and we can create files in here just like we did before. And what's great is if we have a disk failure, we won't lose this data in this resilient configuration. So in this nugget, we saw a very powerful virtualization technology that Microsoft gives us for storage called storage spaces. And they're, of course, based on storage pools of physical disks. As you might guess, this is also a Windows Server technology. You can only imagine our server admins with the huge file and print services that they share, wanting to do this with the storage on the server to share up massive quantities of storage in a virtualized manner for all the users of the enterprise. I hope you found this nugget informative, and I'd like to thank you for viewing.